Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. The New Orleans Pelicans won their second consecutive game and in the process stopped a 7-game win streak by Utah, beating the team that calls themselves Jazz, I have to say it that way, here at Smoothie King Center on Wednesday night. Credit to the Pelicans here. Lenny, they were well rested. And, of course, the Jazz were coming off of an overtime win the previous night in Dallas. So this one set up well for New Orleans. They struggled much of the game but came through in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, when they had to have it, they stepped up and they made plays down the stretch and rallied. They could have very easily let this one get away and, in the process, probably, their playoff hopes slipping away even further. But now, like you said, 2 wins in a row, one of them against the team in the 8th spot right now. Still 1 game left before the All-Star break Thursday night at Oklahoma City. Do you start to feel a little bit of a possibility of maybe there's a second half run in this team? I don't know. I don't know what to think, but it's been kind of a topsy-turvy sort of year. We'll see how Thursday night plays out. The All-Star break coming, and then the second half resumes next Friday.
Anthony Davis had one of his worst halves of the year in the first half. He was basically invisible, really came on in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. And then after the game, we found out why. Davis sharing that his mind was somewhere else, and he simply wasn't into the game. And Lenny, in this case, it was totally understandable with the tragic death of Ingrid Williams, the wife of Monty Williams, who was, for lack of a better description, a surrogate mother to Anthony Davis when he first came into the league. Davis said he spent a lot of time at their house, not just eating, but getting counseling and comforting when he was a young man. Remember, Davis was 19 years old when he came into this league. So to see the young man react that way, to see Alvin Gentry react the way he reacted, which I did after the game, was not only touching, but it was poignant because it speaks volumes about the character of Alvin Gentry to see him react that way about the man in whose family was touched, the man who he succeeded in New Orleans.
Well, the NBA, the players, the NBA, the coaches, it's a small fraternity. Keep in mind, there's only, 450 guys on NBA rosters. There's, a little over 100 people who can call themselves an NBA coach, a head coach, or an assistant coach out there. Those guys all know each other. It's a very tight-knit fraternity, and it's a little bit like, one of your own, and obviously you're dealing with a situation here, and that Monty Williams spent 5 years in New Orleans, and like you mentioned, Anthony Davis, Ryan Anderson, so many other players that he and his wife touched in the time they were here, and it's truly a sad story. And call it irony, coincidence, whatever the case may be. The Pelicans find themselves in Oklahoma City, where Monty Williams is now an assistant coach tonight.
Yeah, so strange. Ryan Anderson really not talking after the game, and he had a rough game too. But again, completely understandable when you consider the circumstances. And credit to the Pelicans for finding a way to win the game, and our most sincere and deepest sympathy, prayers are with the Williams family, because no matter what you think about Monty Williams as a coach, and by the way, he had them winning and in the playoffs when he left here and lost his job, they were really good people in this community. You can read a story by Ed Daniels and read a story that I've written about the Williams family as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, unfortunately, the decisions of whether people continue to coach or continue to play are not necessarily based on, how nice they are, what they do off the court or off the playing field. This is a results business that decides your future. And believe me, if it was all about, your faith and about what kind of person you were, Monty Williams would be an all-star coach in this league.
No question. College basketball, LSU could not get it done at South Carolina. It came down to 2 things. Couldn't make a free throw, and they couldn't defend. And Tulane, meanwhile, with maybe their most significant win of the year, it took forever to get it done, but they got one at East Carolina. They got some national recognition in the process.
A triple overtime win. They've never won a triple overtime game in their history. You can read about it at SportsNOLA.com. You look at that list, and you and I are, I want to say we're old, but we've followed sports in this town for a long time. You look, there's some significant games on that list. You and I both were in the Superdome that night in 1983 when Tulane and UNO played 4 overtimes, yes. I remember that same year, a triple overtime game at North Carolina when they couldn't make an inbounds pass, and some guy named Michael Jordan threw in a prayer at the buzzer to send the game to overtime. So many just, games that could have gone the other way. Finally, for Tulane to win one of these games. Good for them.
Yeah, the 4 overtime game was the Vangilder Bowl, you see, because Lenny was a Tulane guy, and they lost to UNO, but UNO had his Rummel guys and Wade Blundell and Jim Pittman, so it was the Vangilder Bowl, right?
Something like that. Could have been the Trahan Bowl as
could
well.
Have been, could have been, but I was involved with UNO, so different story. We were on different sides, but it's all good. And then, of course, when you talk about the Saints, Drew Brees and Jairus Byrd, well, they're going to be here, but that's no surprise.
No, not a surprise. You know what I am surprised with? Some of the moves that happened this week. You figure, okay, a lot of these things are going to happen when the new league year starts. Well, a lot of these contracts were written in such a way that the money for 2016 was going to be guaranteed on the third day after the Super Bowl. And so some moves had to be made. It's a lot of reason why Jari Evans was released on Monday, and now Drew Brees. And look, things can still be restructured, but he knows he's got some significant money guaranteed now for 2016. Same thing with Jairus Byrd.
No doubt, and we'll see what moves from here because more moves are going to be made. And to Jari Evans, thank you. Phenomenal stay with the Saints. Certainly he'll be a Saints Hall of Famer and well-deserved. He was a great player for this franchise. High school sports, and, of course, our chance for you to see basically every sport that high school sports has to offer continues as we get it going with a very good girls basketball game today.
Yeah, we've got two events coming up here over this long weekend, starting with a matinee on Thursday. You got a chance to see two of the best programs in the New Orleans area. Mount Carmel and Ursuline will face off, 1 o'clock tip-off from Uptown. And then Saturday night it will be St. Aug Brother Martin. The Gentilly rivalry renews. St. Aug has already wrapped up the Catholic League title. Question is now, can they run through undefeated? And they've got a lot to play for because they're sitting at 16 in the 5A power ratings. And that's a tricky line right there. You got to stay at 16 or higher if you want to be able to host a first-round game. So even though they've got the league wrapped up, a big game for the Purple Knights just the same. And certainly for Brother Martin, trying to make sure they get into the playoffs because they're down around 28 right now.
Last but not least, ESPN comes out with a computer college football ranking for the upcoming year. And you know who they have number 1? Not humans, the computers.
LSU.
Thank you. The pressure is on. It's already imposed.
There you go.
It should be great to watch, and we'll see what transpires. Always fun. Great recruiting class. A lot of guys returning. Then there's that quarterback situation.
Well, there's that. Computers don't decide the game. That's the thing. If it was all about computers, well, we wouldn't have a job. So there you go. You'd be listening to two robots up here instead.
We like to use computers, but stay away from us otherwise.
But stay on your computer and check out SportsNOLA.com because we will have coverage all weekend long. This guy will take you gavel to gavel from the state wrestling championships at the CenturyLink Center in Bossier City Friday and Saturday. No other place you want to be than right here at SportsNOLA.com to keep up with it all. We got to go now because I've got to pin him. So, yeah. As always, a pleasure, Lenny. Have a great weekend. See you Monday. All right, that's our first NBC Bank weekend preview. Brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend. God bless you.